Hey, mahal everyone! Welcome back again to the Broadway Saiyan YouTube channel. I am your host 40 and we are back with another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, focusing on the global version of the game. In today's video, the topic of the day is Seifer and Crew, good or not good. So yes, I am doing an evaluation for these three characters. It's gonna be a little bit different compared to my other ones because there are three of them, and we are getting chapter 10 very soon, actually within a few hours upon the making of this video. So hopefully this gives you guys a little bit more insight as to whether or not you should be pulling for them, and if they're your favorites and how they're gonna perform. Hopefully this will help you out. So let's go ahead and move forward. So the first character I'm going to be giving an evaluation on is Raijin. So Raijin in a nutshell. So he's going to be another option for a Thunder DPS specialist. He's decent at Brave Shaving and his damage modifiers are pretty decent. It's at 140% and 150% for his Fist and Fist Plus. And then it's at 80% and 120% for his Secret Art Dragon Rising as well as the Plus version. And then that Brave Attack Plus with the Thunder element as long as you have his Thunder stance. And this is taking into account that he has both of his weapon passives is going to be at 110%. With his 15 CP, that physical attack up self buff that he gives himself is now given to the party. It's at a 20% buff, but the thing is that it is a physical attack buff only, so it's not going to counteract, let's say, Saz's buff. So let's say like you have Saz and Raijin on a party, Saz uses his attack boost, and then you can also have Raijin use his first ability, again provided that he has his 15 CP, so you get both buffs with that, working well with a physical based team. He's going to be the third character to inflict a Thunder Imperil, provided that you have his 35 CP. So the other two characters that we have that can do this are Vincent and Garnet. So Raijin is another character that can do this if you're lacking a character that has a Thunder Imperil debuff. And then a sample party that you could try to go with using Raijin would be Raijin himself, Vincent, and then Krile, because Krile is a bit of a brave battery. Now, what are my thoughts on Raijin? He's decent. He is okay as far as his damage modifiers and things like that, especially with his thunder-based attacks. It's actually kind of on the lower end compared to, let's say, Vincent, because Vincent with his 35 CP, his live wire shot hits for 200%, and we see here that Raijin is only hitting at 120% with the plus version. But the advantage with Raijin is that it is a 2-hit Brave plus HP attack, so that's the advantage you have there. But other than that, he's okay, not particularly amazing. Moving forward, let's go ahead and take a look at Fujin in a nutshell. So the second member of the FF8 Three Stooges team, as I like to call them. So another option for a wind DPS specialist. So she can use the wind element alongside, let's say, Shantoto and Prish and Vaughn. She also carries both AoE range and single target melee. So in a sense, she's kind of diverse because she has an option to be AoE range with her first ability, and then her second ability is also a single target melee. She's decent at Brave Shaving, so her ability 1, which is her Annihilate with the 15 CP, also has the option to hit a lone target harder. So she gets a 60% boost in damage if she uses Annihilate if there's only one target left. So her Annihilate plus damage modifiers is going to be 80% and then 100% for the plus version. And remember, you're going to add on 60% if there is just one enemy. And then her Pulverize and Pulverize Plus is at 80% and then 120%. And remember, that is going to be a Brave plus HP attack. And then her Brave Attack Plus is at 110%. That is wind-based, provided that you do have her wind stance. Now, with her 15 CP, she can also provide a party buff as far as a speed up. So normally that is a self buff. However, she does provide it to the entire party if you have that 15 CP passive. She is going to be the first character to inflict Wind Imperil, which is really, really cool. So now we have somebody that can Wind Imperil. And then a sample party that I set up for this is Fujin, Shantoto, and Vaughn. So it's very aggressive, missing out on a little bit of attack buffs there for support, but you have like different debuffs across the board. So you have the Wind Imperil. With Shantoto, she has not only the Provoke, but she also has the Poison debuff. And then with Vaughn, he has that Blind that he could inflict when you have his White Whirl and Luminescence active. Now, what do I think of Fujin in a nutshell? I think she's interesting. I think versatility-wise, she's a little bit better than Raijin, but unfortunately, her attack stat is a little bit on the low side, and I did cover this on my previous video regarding the Chapter 10 preview. So me personally, I feel like she's the weakest of the three characters from Chapter 10, but she could still find some use, but you have to build around her. You have to build a party that works with her. So you can try the sample party, or of course you could try to use her with a buffer or another debuffer, however you guys want to use a party with her should you use her. And finally, the last character is going to be Seifer. in a nutshell. Now, I think it's pronounced Cypher, or some people say Safer. I say Cypher. But anyway, so if you have both of his weapon passives, Cypher becomes a very versatile AoE and single target DPS, with his abilities hitting harder when there is just one enemy, as well as against debuffed enemies. So he has two benefactors of hitting harder, either if the enemy is debuffed or if they're by themselves, or having both, you get both of the increases. So that's pretty good. So he has the potential to hit really, really hard. He has decent damage modifiers on both abilities. So No Mercy damage modifier is the following. So with his 15 CP at base, it's at 100%. If the enemies are debuffed, it's going to get a 50% increase, so it's going to be at 150%. Now, if there's an enemy by itself, and the enemy is not, that lone enemy is not debuffed, it's going to be at 160%. And then finally, if you tag along that the debuffed attack up, it's going to be at 240%. So that's pretty good. So those are the damage modifiers there. And then for his Bloodfest, which is going to be his AoE Brave plus HP attack, is as follows: 80%, 120%, 140%, and 210%. So Cypher is also a decent option as a debuffer. Now, keep in mind, he is an RNG-based debuffer because he has a chance to inflict a debuff, but the debuffs that he does inflict are either a 30% attack down on his first ability, and then a 20% max Brave down with his second ability, and these are at a medium probability, provided again that you do have both of his weapon passives. So definitely weapon reliant, but then again, almost every character is pretty much weapon reliant. But out of the three, I feel like he's definitely the best one. And then a sample party that I went up for setting up for Cypher, if you want to use him, is I used Irvine, and the reason why is because Irvine has a chance to inflict that range resistance down, or the ranged imperil, and Cypher's abilities are actually ranged, which is pretty interesting. So he's going to benefit from that. And then I chose Ferris for this because, as we know, Ferris's Cannon Fire, when you have it mastered, not only dispels, but inflicts up to 5 debuffs. And again, we know that Cypher hits harder, so he's guaranteed to hit harder with this particular setup. But there's always other setups you can use, but this is the one that I had for the sample. Now, final thoughts and tips for these three characters. So all three of them are interesting options for DPS. And again, Cypher, hands down, is the best of the three because he further increases his damage with two different factors. All three do work well with buffers and support. They have their own self-buffs with their weapons. I didn't list them down, but pretty much they don't really contradict or unsynergize with some buffers and support. So they'll work well. All three of them work well with Saz. Now, I do have to say that none of these three really add to anything too game-breaking. However, if you are a newer player, or let's say a free-to-play player with limited inventory options, they may be useful to pull on, depending on the needs of whatever you currently have. So they're all fairly good, with, again, Cypher being the best one. And then later on, and this was mentioned to me by a buddy of mine on the Discord, he goes by the name of Dekrith, or Red, so thank you again for your help with this. But he mentioned to me that later on, some of the event bosses are actually going to be having vulnerabilities, making them more vulnerable to attack down debuffs. And you can actually find this information when you actually click on the boss's portrait. It's going to show you what their resistances and weaknesses are, and it's at the bottom below the elemental stuff. So that's actually pretty cool. So some of these bosses later on in the events are going to have a vulnerability to attack down debuff, which means that Cypher's probability is going to be guaranteed, meaning that he's going to be getting that DPS increase, because we do know that Cypher does hit harder against debuffed enemies. So are these characters good or not good? I'm going to say Fujin and Raijin are just average, with Cypher being a little bit above average and definitely being the best of the three. So again, if you like these characters, they're definitely there for you to pull on. Later on, they will be getting a level 60 awakening, so even if you decide, hey, I'm not going to be pulling on this banner, you have another chance to pull on them again, because when they get their level 60 awakening, and they definitely get a lot better, all of these weapons will come back. So that is going to be my final thoughts and tips on Fujin, Raijin, and Cypher for the upcoming Chapter 10 release. Alright guys, again, thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button, turning on that notification bell, that way you know when I post a new video, and leaving a comment and leaving a like. Again, I am 40 the Broadway Saiyan. Stay tuned for the next video, and mahal everyone.